grow into.
What do you think, buddy?
He's clearly got some stuff like pent up, some baby rage he can't get out.
Due to the nature of this experience, there's no way to avoid spoilers. So we do have to cover the broad strokes of story that you're given within the first 20 or 30 minutes. This is one of those gems that you may or may not have ever heard of, but which is going to intrigue many of you, I know. Goodnight Universe was created by Nice Dream and published by Skybound Games, and is chiefly the work of Graham Parks and Oliver Lewin, whose previous title Before Your Eyes has a real following. And in this one, you get to take on the role of a baby who turns out to be anything but normal. But is it a beautiful boy or the binding of your backlog? Well, my name's Mark Walker. Welcome to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. There's no way that some spoilers aren't going to be involved in the description because the description is the whole game itself. You take on the role of Isaac within a relatively normal family. That's to say, they argue a lot. They have a teenage daughter who doesn't always see eye to eye with them, but who has a grand vision for her future, or at least that's what you're led to believe. You're playing as Isaac from the first person, and he's voice acted with much of that early dialogue seemingly a metaphor for being a baby.
I had to remember, no matter how smart I felt, as far as they knew, I was just a normal baby.
Right at the beginning of the game, you'll see Beau Bridges, his grandfather, in a rocking chair. And the way he speaks to you doesn't seem like the way you would speak to a baby. It builds that initial intrigue, as does the very first half hour, which I won't spoil. But it soon becomes apparent that there's a sci-fi element at play here, and that Isaac himself isn't exactly what he seems. He understands everyone around him. He knows what they're saying, but he can't communicate, other than to throw a tantrum or make appropriate gurgling sounds. Now, in other versions of the title, there's a really interesting control method whereby the camera of the PC, or you would hope on the Nintendo Switch, is used to track your face. And if you smile in those moments, it knows that you're happy and it will be reflected in the game, and if you frown, the opposite will happen. At launch on the Switch 2, sadly, they haven't managed to get that camera functionality nailed down, but we have been promised that that's coming by the end of the year. With that said, without it, you simply move in the right analog stick on the controller, and soon we discover that you're not just simply there to learn how to crawl and gradually grow older. There's something unusual about your grandfather, about his diaries, and indeed about yourself, because, well, you can control things with your mind.
Stop.
Yeah, I know, right? I wasn't expecting it either. Now, initially, these psychic abilities are kept relatively low-key. Watching an interview with the developers, they were keen to give you the frustrations that a baby may feel, the inability to communicate, and then gradually reward the player with this strange freedom that they didn't know where it came from. This then involves physically moving objects within the world, but also the ability to peer into the thoughts of the adults around, and eventually things go way further. What's really interesting about the way the game's presented is that Isaac wants to impact the family in a positive way, but he struggles to do this without the ability to verbally articulate himself, and so has to find creative ways to influence proceedings. While all of this is happening, there's an obliviousness to the family that also enables the player to reflect on their own experiences. It's actually really clever. The thought of a baby with an adult's mind, it's quite a horrific one, and there are actual elements of horror within the experience, whether they're by design or just a reflection of me as the player and how I would feel within that situation. It definitely keeps you thinking. It's also quite funny. There's a cartoon they put on to placate the baby, and you're there thinking, this is hell, please stop it, it's terrible, and gain the ability to do that. But then on the flip side, he starts to find comfort in it when he's all alone. There were programs that my kids insisted on watching when they were younger that were like literal torture. Anyone that remembers the Teletubbies will know what I'm talking about. But then there's this strange comfort after the fact that comes from seeing those things. The gameplay is a mixture of different elements. You can look around the environment, sometimes interact with things, reach out and grab an object, and there are mini games for certain aspects or moments in life, like when he's learning to crawl, with perhaps the biggest gameplay elements centering around the story. You do have several moments where you get to make choices, either selecting words on the screen or using your abilities to communicate messages with others. There's definitely some telltale DNA in here, and while I say that as a positive, I do also think you kind of know that your actions aren't aren't having a huge effect on the overall proceedings. There always seems to come the inevitable "you no longer have a choice" moment. And with the linear nature of the overall story, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And perhaps having the camera in front of me and being able to express it with my own face may have made those pseudo-choices feel a little more impactful. As a massive fan of narrative-driven experiences, things like Firewatch, I think this will appeal to a similar audience. There's something about it that when the credits roll after just 5 hours, you're still thinking about that. You mull on some of the smaller details, and it blurs the lines a little between a game and a film in that regard. And I think much of that is because of the excellent voice cast and the work they did. Gameplay-wise, it's a really difficult one actually. Understanding that the gameplay is centered around the narrative and your psychic abilities, those choices that you're making, but the overall experience that's being delivered to you, it's definitely important. This isn't a run around the house as a baby sim, but it is a slice of life with a sci-fi twist that then takes things to a place you would never expect. And for that, I really enjoyed it. It felt very fresh indeed, and I can't wait to try it again when we have that camera functionality. Story and gameplay combined, they score 17 out of 20. The controls, which mainly use the analog sticks, they do feel a little fiddly. I wish they had introduced a mouse mode or gyro for the toggle, because you very often have a cursor to move around, but they're fine. We just don't have the full functionality that's available on the other platforms just yet. They score 15 out of 20. Goodnight Universe runs on the Unity engine. It's a Nintendo Switch 2 edition that we're playing, and it uses a really nice low-poly style and runs fine on Switch 2. No real performance dips, but it's also not really a game that centers on its looks. It could quite easily have been a game running on Switch 1, honestly. Things like aliasing are present, but the character animations are really nice, especially some of those made by Isaac himself. By far its strongest aspect is its audio. The voice work from Bo Bridges and the 3 actors that comprise the family unit, as well as some of the tertiary cast, they're just engaging, really quite good. There are moments where you can peer into the minds of some of those people, and the chaos that's ensuing just below the surface is very cleverly represented through sound.
What are you gonna be?
I had their
when
attention.
you grow up?
Perhaps I'd finally be understood.
You're gonna love them. And then, when you're ready, they will get you home.
Visually, there are some rougher aspects, but it looks good and runs well. That scores 15 out of 20. While not quite perfect, the sound and audio is really strong. It scores 19 out of 20. Goodnight Universe is a reasonable £16.99. It is single player only. It's around 5 or 6 hours depending on your pace. It is an experience I think is worth what they're asking. There is a physical available, but sadly it's a game keycard. I almost don't hold that against developers, especially small indies, quite as much as I did at the beginning of the Switch 2's life, after discovering that Nintendo only offer the 64GB card to developers, and that essentially wipes out any profits they may think of making from a physical copy. It's almost like they wanted developers to go keycard route, but regardless, I'd rather they charge double the price and put it on a proper physical and still make their profit. The actual game though, the digital copy, which is what we review, for £16.99, definitely good value, an enjoyable experience. If not quite what I was expecting, I give value 16 out of 20. Goodnight Universe is one of the cheapest games we have on Switch 2 at the moment, but it offers one of the most memorable experiences. While not perfect and visually not pushing the limits of the Switch 2 and not having the camera functionality at this present moment, it's definitely a good game. It gets a SwitchUp score of 82%. Thank you to the publisher for the review copy. For all of you that enjoy this type of content, let me know down in the comments what you make of this one. It was one of those where I know that not many people are going to watch this video, but I really wanted to put the review out because it's my type of game and, you know, my type of slightly unusual experience. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what you think. Thank you to our Patreons and members, all of you that enjoy the content. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!